Yep. Give me a nod when you're ready.
Like fourth.
Shooter's ready. Stand by.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Bullets and Bourbon. I'm joined by my co-host Frank Gow, and we have returning guest Nate Drumm. So, back last August, we released an episode with Nate talking about much of our military careers, time in the fire service, and growth within the TTG community, the tactical games. So, Nate, first thing I kind of gotta ask, what's been going on since we last spoke?
All right. So since we last spoke, we were just kind of talking. That was right before the team event where Blayr and I went and competed in West Virginia. And then after that was Nationals, the Tactical Games National event down at the Staccato Ranch. And we ended up getting fourth in the team event. And then we got, I went to Nationals and I got fourth there. Blayr got fifth in women's elite. And then I went shortly after that in December. I ended up having to have ankle surgery from an old injury that I just kept re-injuring, and I re-injured in the Nevada event in October of last year. So I went and got it checked out, and they said, you definitely have to have surgery. So I was like, well, I'm just going to do Nationals then, because you got to fix it. So you might as well fix a lot. So did that. And I've been recovering from that since December. That's pretty much what I've been working on right now. Just doing some reloading stuff and just trying to do what I can for PT and just staying, doing a lot of upper body workouts. Getting mobility back in my lower body. So, that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of covered everything up in a nutshell, but we kind of want to do a deep dive of a lot of these, and like kind of mentioning at TTG Nationals, you finished in fourth in Masters 40, and truth be told, Masters 40 seems to be where all the retired elite division competitors go, but you were less than 1% off the podium, and just a reminder, you really fucked up your ankle back in October, but how do you rationalize wins and losses, and how do they feed into the following year's goal setting?
Yeah. So going into Masters, it's definitely not easier. There are some definite gangsters in that division. Obviously you got Kirk Homer, who got first, Clint Gower got second, Jason Deal got third.
And Jason's a fucking phenomenal human being.
I got to meet Jason competing in elite, and just an awesome dude. There's so many. I feel bad like naming names because there's a bunch of people I would say are really, really good, but like
Patrick Court, like me, you.
Oh yeah.
Like we were talking 2 weeks ago, and you're like, yeah, I talked to a couple guys like down in the Bragg area. I was like, and I was just like, Patrick Court and Jason Deal. He's like, yeah, you know them? I was like, yeah, I know them.
Yeah. So like, long story short, like I met Pat. We were doing the ruck. It was the first time we ever rucked in the tactical games. It was at TRC. And, it's dark. It's like 5 a.m. and there's a hole, and I find it. I go down with the ruck, and Pat has to literally leap over me to stop from like falling. And so I get up, I hop up, and his exact words were like, "You good, Ranger?" And I'm like, "Ranger? Like what?" I'm like, and I'm like, "Yeah." So I hopped up, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." And we keep running, and then like that's how we kind of met. And then I met Jason Deal that same year. just at another stage, and we just all kind of just clicked and became friends. And but yeah, no. So the Masters division is definitely pretty stout. The biggest difference is that because I have a lot of like old injuries that are nagging, and I'm able to, when I go back to work on Monday or Tuesday, I'm sore but not like limping. And that's the biggest way I can explain between elite as like a 40-year-old. Like when you're in your mid 30s, like just get you some more straws and suck it up. Like, but like when a lot of that stuff, like once you hit 40, like stuff changes, man. Like you don't want to admit it, but it's true. Yeah, so I was pretty jacked up. In fact, I downplayed it pretty good, or at least I tried. People knew I was hurt, but I didn't want to make that the star of me when I was at Nationals. Like I was like, yeah, I'm hurt because I was wearing my brace and I had it taped up. But I didn't want it to be a crutch, you know?
You didn't want to broadcast it to the world. Hey, I'm fucked up, but I'm still gonna do this, and I'm gonna, just like, yeah, shit's going on, but I'm gonna keep pushing.
Yeah. So like, I mean, the people obviously Jason Deal knew because he was there when I heard it in Nevada. Kirk Homer knew because he was there too, and he helped wrap my ankle. So I mean, there was definitely people that knew I was hurt, but I didn't want it to be a crutch. And I was like, I'm just going to give it my best. And then we had a 4 mile or however long it was, ruck run with like 1,800 foot elevation change, and I think it had 2,700 steps.
That's fucking miserable.
Yeah, so like I was really limping towards the end, and like a lot of my friends were coming up, like they were passing me. To be fair, I got middle of the pack on the ruck run, so I wasn't last. But there was a lot of guys that were trying to encourage me, and they were trying to keep me going, and I tried, I really did. But like, and Kirk Homer came back and helped bring me in, and I told him, I said, man, I'm really hurting. I was like, I got a speed and I'm going to go at it. Like, I can't go any faster. And he's like, yep, we're good. Let's just go. I'm like, all right. So I really appreciated him coming back, and everyone else that gave me words of encouragement, because I probably would have been a lot slower if they hadn't. So my ankle did affect my performance, especially because we had so many burpees at Nationals. Like it was burpee heavy. The Nationals was a little bit different than it normally is. So there was a lot of points on. There was more points only stages than we've ever had at any event ever. And every time you had a points only stage, basically that meant that you had burpees at the end. And we were, it was normally the stages are like 12 minutes. But for Nationals, they wanted to like beef it up and like, okay, we're going to give you 15 minutes. I guess I don't know that for a fact, but typically they're 12 minutes with a 3-minute reset, which gives you a 15-minute total. So like when I volunteer as a RO, like, okay, I have a 12-minute stage with a 3-minute reset, and that's 3-minute reset also includes a 3, 2, 1 go, right? So you have a timetable to keep up with. But we had a 15-minute stage, and we were finishing in like 6 minutes, 6 to 8 minutes, like these points only stages. So that meant for those mathematicians out there that we were doing burpees for 6 to 7 minutes. Like, that was hard for me. I had a hard time keeping up because a lot of those burpees where you had to go over a box and you had to throw a sandbag. And so the whole time I was really scared of hurting my ankle more. So I was moving slower than I know I could have, but like it wasn't, if I even tweaked my ankle just slightly, I was out for the weekend, and it just didn't make sense to me. So I, my mindset going into it was like, I need to shoot my pants off to be relevant. And, so like we had 2 shooting only stages. We had a really long range stage where we shot the furthest we've ever done at tactical games. And we shot out to like just shy, I think it was like 670 yards. and I did well on that. And then we had a little jungle run stage, and I did well on that and they introduced our rifle spinner, which we'd never shot. I never shot before. I did really good on that. My shooting was really good. It was just, I couldn't. And then we had a weave that stuff is what hindered me. If I could draw a line and tell you exactly why I didn't do as well as I could have, it was where my ankle was holding me back on burpees and some of the physical stuff. But I held my own on the rope climbs. I did well on the rope climbs. I did pretty decent on the wheelbarrow stages. So the stages that weren't points only, and where it was more like a tactical games. Normally how it works is, you have your strength event, you have your running event, and then you have a hybrid endurance event. Those events I did really well. I think I got, I either got top 3 in those. And then when it got to the points only burpees, I was way, I don't know, 9th to 17th, so it definitely affected my performance there. So could have, if my ankle had been better, am I telling you that I would have been winning in the burpees? No, but I would have done better. And I know I would have done better on the ruck run. So, I mean, I guess if the question is, did my ankle hold me back? Yeah, it did. But I think I still gave it a pretty good run. So.
No, that's good. To kind of go off of that, obviously injuries can prevent you from performing to your best abilities. But when you're in the moment, what do you focus on, to get yourself through it? Obviously things are going on, whether you're in pain or you're ignoring the pain. How do you focus in order to keep going?
That's a good question. So in Nevada, when I heard it on the last event of day 1. And which I was kind of glad. So when I heard it, luckily there was an actual PT there that was there visiting with another athlete in the Masters, because us Masters athletes, we got to roll with everything we got. So she looked at it and she said, "Hey, come see me tomorrow, and I'm gonna wrap it up." I said, "All right, cool." So I elevated it. I took some ibuprofen, took some Tylenol. I tried to do as much as I could to help with the swelling that night. I could put weight on it, but I was talking to Blayr, my wife, and I was like, I 100% don't know if I can finish tomorrow. It depends on how I feel in the morning. If I can put weight on it. If I can put weight on it, I'll try. Because we were supposed to be running on day 2.
Oh.
And but there was a massive flood that came through, and it washed away everything that was supposed to running. So we ended up not running, which worked in my favor because my ankle. But my mindset into it was I'm not going to quit unless I have to, unless I can't just really do it. So when the PT wrapped my ankle, it literally gave me my ligament back. I don't know. It was the most amazing feeling in the world. She used this stuff called leukotape, and it's stiffer and it's a lot more expensive. But I'm here to tell you that stuff saved my competition. So that instantly gave me a lot of confidence, knowing that, as long as I stay ibuprofen up, I'm going to push as hard as I can, as long as my ankle keeps up. And that's what I did. And I ended up getting first out there in Nevada. From that point to nationals, I think that was really the bigger mental game, because I knew I was hurt. And then I found out how hurt I really was. And so then I was just it was a game of, how do I minimize damage? And so I went into that weekend playing to my strengths. I knew I was gonna suffer on the run. I knew I was gonna suffer on anything like I didn't know how many burpees we were gonna do, but like I knew anything where we were gonna have to do physical only stuff, like it was gonna hurt, right? So, instead of focusing on what you can't do, you can control what you do. And that's what I did. Like, that's what I always try to do is like control what you can and minimize the damage on everything else. Because really that's all you can do.
In terms of your mental approach, was there an element of wouldn't it be kind of cool if I came into this nationals as hobbled as I am and I still ended up on the podium? I find, so the last tactical games I did was in Florence last year, and I was coming off an Achilles tear, and that was my mindset. It wasn't,
Wow.
it wasn't, there was a little bit like bandage it up, baby it, don't land like a dumbass off that tall ass wall that they had in Florence, right?
Yeah.
But the other side of it was, I think one way to look at it is I'm going to go out there and do my best. But the other way to look at it is like, wouldn't it be swell if I just, if I ended up on the podium next to all these other people that were healthy and didn't really have the same setbacks that I did? Was that ever an
Oh,
element of your mental framing?
100%. Like I went into that weekend saying I'm going to make it to the podium. Like that was 100% my goal. Like before we started, like my wife and I both sat there and talked like, what's our goals? I said, at a minimum, I want to be top 5. I said, but my goal is to be on the podium. Like that's where I want to be. And I was pretty close. Like I did what you probably should never do. And I went through and I played with practice score competitor.
Yeah.
And so like
I never do that I never do that until after all the scores are out.
oh no, that's what I did. I did it till when I did it the next day.
Yeah.
And when we were driving back from Texas, and I was playing the what if game, and on the shooting aggregate, um, they said I dropped one on the very last target, and if I hadn't dropped that one, it would have put me in third. So it was pretty close. Like it was a
It
close
was
run. Like
literally like
Jason and I,
percent, or it was 0.8, I think it was. Like that was
it was close.
Yeah.
And it was it was so Kirk and Clint, they were in their own race. Like they had it locked up for first and second. And it came down to Jason Deal and I. And I forget if how close Dell was. Because Dell was pretty close too, I think. Or no, it was somebody else that was maybe fourth. Anyways, but it was no fifth. I got fourth. And when you're going against like one of your best friends, like one of your good friends, and he even came up to me, he goes, "Man, I hate this." I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "I don't want to see you. I don't want it to be like you lose, I win, or whatever." I said, "No, dude. Like when my friends win, I win. Like that's how I look at it." Now, having said that, I am going to give you a run for your money.
Well, let's
like,
look at it from a CrossFit Games perspective. Last year at the CrossFit Games, Roman Krenikov should have, by all means, won the CrossFit Games. And it came down to the last event where he was seriously injured, but he still went out there and he performed to the best of his capability. And
Yeah,
he was one of the last to finish, but he still came in what, third place? I mean,
yeah,
he didn't win, but like, so take it in that sense, like you're going out there and you're still dominating for what you're capable of doing.
yeah. And so when I hurt my ankle in Nevada, people, and I had my hearing plugs in, and so I couldn't, and I have kind of like mild hearing loss. But people kept yelling, "Oh, he just Krenikoffed it," and I'm like, I thought they were saying something way different. I'm like, "What did you say to me?" And they're like, "Krenikoff," and I'm like, "What's a Krinkanoff?" I'm like, "What are you saying?" But no, that's funny you bring that up because like that's what they were saying, and I was like, "Man, if you're going to compare me to him, I'll take it." But um, but no, that yeah, at no time was I going to sit there and sit in my tears and be like, "Oh man, this sucks." But like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be like, I want these guys to know that I have like I had a really, really injured, like I tore 2 ligaments and a large chunk of cartilage. And I just wanted him to know, like, hey man, I can still keep up. So like I'm still dangerous when I got like an injured wing, or however you want to look at it.
So kind of continuing the conversation on the ankles, having ankle surgery and all that. You know, and you and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. Like in our younger years, we would have bounced back and been like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna do everything I can," and we would have rushed the recovery just because back then we were a lot more immature in our way of thinking. Like, I did it whenever I had shoulder surgery. I did it after I had hernia surgery. I'm just like, well, fuck, I feel good. Like I remember talking to my physical therapist after shoulder surgery, and she's like, "What are your goals?" I want to do 20 pull-ups in 3 months. She's like, "I don't know if you're going to be able to get to that." I hit 20 pull-ups in 6 weeks. She's like, you're kind of done with physical therapy. You're fully recovered. And maybe part of that was age, recovering pretty quickly back then, at 22 years old. And then part of it was also I was rushing to get through recovery rather than taking a step-by-step methodical process. Now that we have our age behind us and we're seasoned individuals, as we'll call it, what
It's a tactical use of a word, seasoned.
what steps are you taking now in order to ensure a healthy recovery versus a rush one?
Well, it's funny you asked me that, because I just got told by my PT I needed to back off on my stretching because I was being too aggressive. um, so I'm very fortunate to have the PT I have. He works with athletes, and he has a mindset of getting people back to work as soon as possible, as soon as they can, right? And I told him that. I said, hey, I compete. I want to get back to competing as soon as possible. He goes, okay, well, we'll do what we can. And so I told him, I was like, I know this is going to hurt, because they'll look at me and they're like, is this hurt? I was like, yeah. He's like, do you need to take a break? I was like, no. Like, I know this is going to hurt. Like, let's just keep going. And I was willing to, just go through the pain, just because I knew it was going to hurt and it was going to be uncomfortable. And, like when my surgeon talked to me, he goes, hey, your ankle is going to be tight. And I was like, I hope it is. I just paid you a lot of money and, went through, 3 month, or no, I'm sorry, 6 weeks of non-weight bearing for it to be tight. And he's like, okay, some people just forget that why we did this. I'm like, yeah, no, I mean, I don't know how you could forget, but so I guess to get back to your question, but like, your body is going to tell you, and I feel like my body now tells me at 42, it talks to me more, or maybe I'm just listening more. Because my ankle was swollen for like 2 or 3 days straight, which hadn't happened yet. And I said, I told him, I said, hey, my ankle's swollen and it's not going down. And he looked at it. He goes, well, it's not a blood clot. It's not this. And he's like, maybe we need to tone it back a little bit. I was like, all right. So when we toned it back and I started being smarter about my stretching and my mobility, and, the weight bearing of the rehabilitation that I was going through, my ankle stopped being swollen. I'm able to continue my stretching, continue my mobility. And that's really the goal. The goal is to get back to healthy as fast as possible. But it, if I was 24, it probably would happen faster. I mean, being all honest, being 42 is a factor in the recovery, so knowing that, my wife's a registered dietitian, so I had her come up with a meal plan for me to keep, because I know that's going to be a huge proponent in my recovery, making sure that I'm getting enough protein, I'm getting the right nutrients, and but I'm also at the same time, I'm not moving as much, so I want to lose weight. So it was a good time to try and get everything back in check. And so that actually, I'm down about 10 pounds. And, I feel like all of it, like you can't look at one thing. It's just being humble and being smart and knowing that you have limitations at this age and you're willing to work with them.
So no, I completely agree with you, and and to your point of listening to your body more. Um, at my age, I'm only 41 now. I have learned to do that more. So last year, whenever I was prepping for the team event in April in South Carolina, my partner was a friend and former teammate on the shooting team, John Bodziak, and 6 weeks prior to the team event, we decided let's go on a flat run. And I told him I was like, I want to take it easy. Let's just do like a 2 mile flat run. And in the middle, not even hitting the mile marker, I felt like tension in my calf muscle, and I was just like, I'm feeling. I'm like, well, I'm gonna keep going, and doing the Marine thing, like, fuck it, just keep pushing.
Yeah.
Pushed to the mile point, and I just told John, I was like, look, I'm listening to my body. This is what it's telling me. I'm going to keep going until I can't go any longer. And I ran about another half a mile. And at that point, I was like, John, I'm fucking stopping. He's like, what's going on? I was like, I can't, I can barely walk. Like, I limped a half a mile back to the building, and I could not run for another 4 weeks. So here I am 2 weeks before the team event, and now I am starting to run again. And even then there was still a lot of tension. Even at the team event, there was still a lot of tension in that calf. But I was like, I am only going
Yeah.
to go as fast as I am capable of going, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna push through. That way we know this is gonna be our survival event. Like, just push through, get it done with, and then every other event we're just gonna try and knock out of the park.
Yeah. I mean, that's honestly, I think, and it's true. Like it might sound cliche, but as the older you get, the wiser you get because of past lessons, and those past lessons are usually painful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and pain is the ultimate teacher. And because you're either going to be, if you're going to be dumb, you're going to be tough, right? That's what
Yeah.
my dad always told me, and he's not wrong. So you
Pain
either get
equals
smarter or you get stronger. Yeah, you're either going to get smarter or stronger. Like sometimes you got to be both, but like um, those lessons help
they
you
stick
towards
with
the
you.
end, later. Yeah.
So, kind of moving the conversation along, the last time we talked in August, we talked about you branching out and competing in other disciplines. Um, and so, do you see that in the cards this year? And if so, what are you planning on competing in?
100%. In fact, in a couple weeks, so Louisiana is like a for some reason, like there's no shooting sports here. Like you have a little bit of USPSA, like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but like unless you're living up by Jerry Michalik up in Shootout Alley, like there's nothing. We're like a wasteland, I guess you could, or a barren for shooting sports. Like I
Swamp.
heard of like one, yeah, it's a swamp. It's nothing. There's a bunch of outlaw matches, but like anyway, so um there's a friend of mine who shoots a lot of quantified performance matches, and he posted about a match coming in Louisiana. It's not a quantified performance, but it's quantified performance esque. So it's following a lot of those same um,
Principles.
principles. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And so, I'm going to go. I'm signed up. I'm going to go, and it's March 9th. And so I'm 100% going to start doing those. So it's at the heart of it. It's a precision gas gun event, but you can run a bolt gun there if you wanted, but it's really designed about gas guns. So, which is great because I'm bringing my tactical games rifle, and I'm going to shoot it. Like I have another rifle that's coming that I'm going to set up specifically for that. But like for right now, I'm just going to run my tactical games rifle, and it's going to help me just that much more. use those, the same rifle, get used to, using your holds, dial if I might be dialing, but also be just using because I'm using I see you, I think we have the same scope, Night Force NX8.
Yep.
So like I have the DMX reticle, which I really like. So I was supposed to be doing the real world sniper challenge. And I was also supposed to be doing the April Mammoth challenge. Those are both sniper challenges. And that was before my ankle surgery. So that kind of got postponed. There's a good chance that I'm still going to go RO, the real world sniper, because they actually pushed it back to May and they changed the location. So if I can RO it, I'm still going to go because I want to get more involved with that. Like I'm still going to start doing sniper challenges down the road. The only other thing that I'm going to do is once my ankle allows me to start doing more like footwork stuff, they have like some USPSA matches out here, like the Gator Eeps, and there's actual sanctioned matches, like not just all outlaw. So I'm gonna try and do some of that to get, because I can always get better at action shooting with pistol. I'm never having a bad time when I'm pulling a trigger. So
honestly, I would say like play around with some of the outlaw matches. You will have a lot of fun whenever it comes to outlaw. Just because it's different rule sets and it gets you thinking different mindsets. Like, we were talking like 3-gun. Most 3-gun well, pretty much all 3-gun matches nowadays are all outlaw. They all have their own different flavor and they're all real fun. So it's not bad to explore some of the different outlaw type matches.
Yeah. So at this point, I'm just going to do whatever I can, but for sure I'm doing that gas gun match. And whenever I'm able to compete again under load and weight, I'm going to get back into doing some sniper challenges. And then obviously I'm going to do tactical games. But yeah, I'm definitely 100% branching out and trying some new disciplines because,
it's only going to make you better.
Yeah. I mean, I love tactical games. That's not me saying I'm taking away from it, but like you always want to try something new. You always want to do something else because if you're not growing, you're stagnant. Right. Yep. And so, I always like to try something else, do something else. I mean, that's how I got into tactical games because I was like competing in tactical or CrossFit. And I'm like, there's something else I want to do. And so, there's always something new to learn. So.
No, all very good points. So this year you attended SHOT Show. I don't think it was your first time ever really going, but this year it was, bit different, bigger. How would you describe the experience? And then did it open any future partnerships for you in Blayr?
Yeah. So this was my fourth time going to SHOT Show. However, this was my first time going not as a buyer. So I used to work at a pretty big gun shop here in Baton Rouge, and we would go to SHOT Show, and we were there to work. We were there to buy make purchases for the year, and I went when SHOT Show was really kind of big. It was I think it was. So a lot of people don't realize this, but SHOT Show used to move around. It used to bounce around from like Dallas to Orlando to, I don't know if they went to Tennessee, but anyway, but in Vegas, and then it just stayed in Vegas. And so I started going, I think when they just started primarily going just to Vegas. So it was like 2010 through 13, right? And it was so massive. Like if you've been there, like the old RSR carts that people would take your ankles out with, and just you were shoulder to shoulder with people, and it was massive. And so that's what I had in my mind, what it was going to be like. And when I got there was a lot less people, I think, because 2020 2020 and 2021 happened, because it didn't take place in 21, and then 22 was like a kind of like a soft open, and then like 23 happened. And what the biggest thing that I noticed was that there was a lot more people there for business, and there was a lot less people there just trying to get free stuff. you're always going to have people getting tickets. And I'm going to say this because I don't know another way to say it, but like, they don't need to be there. They're not supposed to be there. I'm not saying I'm mad that they're there, but like, they're not there for business, right? You know, I don't care if they're there, like, you know, get there and you get to see kind of some cool stuff. But, because I mean, if I'll be honest, if I could go, because when I found out about SHOT Show when I was still in the Marines, I was like, that's what I want to do. So like, I'm not mad at anybody for going there because I would want to go too. But that was the biggest thing that I noticed, was a little less people, a little more business orientated, which, you know, was kind of interesting. There were some good conversations that took place. You know, Blair's got some more sponsors than I do, and so she talked to them, and like, you know, when you have sponsors, they talk to other people, because like, if you haven't been in the 2A industry, like, it's very small.
Mm-hmm.
And if you learn anything, that's what you should learn. Like, and people move around in the industry. So if you know someone that works for company A, it's not unheard of that they're going to go work for company B. And, you know, there's a small group of us that always talk about, be a good dude. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't hurt to be a good dude. And in this industry, when you're not a good dude or dudette, you know, however you want to look at it, your name will get dropped faster for being a douche than, you know, hey, like, he's a good dude. Like, he is a good dude. But like, if you upset people, they'll be a lot faster to be like, hey, don't talk to them. Like, so if you're trying to get sponsors and you're trying to get your name out there, I've watched it happen, and there's like, no, don't talk to him. Don't talk to her. Don't talk to them. Like, they kind of showed their ass, you know, like they did this, they did that. And so it's like, that was, so on the other aspect of it though, like, when you are a good dude, a good person, like, it almost, like, you'll meet this person and be like, hey, do you need any help with anything? And they're like, well, I need some help with this. Like, hey, I know this person over here. I used to work over here. So let's go over there and let's go talk to them. And you'll go from company to company and be like, oh, and they'll say the same thing. Like, if this person's vouching for you, hey, do you need any help? Well, yeah, I kind of need this. Like, I got you. Like, let's go over here. And so that happened quite a bit. You know, so can't really say what's going on because it hasn't really come out yet. But like, yeah, there was definitely some stuff that happened. And I know that's anticlimactic, and I hate when stuff like that happens, but like, you know, business is business. And so like, you have to watch like what's said, when it's said, you know, and there's a timeline for everything. And so, you know, when it comes out, it comes out. So like, I have a kind of like, for that gas gun, I have a project that I'm working on, and, you know, the rifle that I'm working on, you know, is one of my sponsors, like Sons of Liberty Gunworks. And, you know, I'm putting one of their new broadswords, you know, through that process, or the new SPR line. And I talked to some other companies, and I'm hoping to work with them and try and put together like a, you know, never done this, like this type of match, to like starting from the ground up, reloading for it, shooting the match, documenting it, getting out there. Cause there's a lot of people that are good at documenting. But like, not a lot of them reload. And, you know, I love to reload. And so that's kind of like, it's starting to become like, people are starting to come to me, and it's starting to get out that I reload. And so I'm using that as a strength, and I'm like, hey, you know, reloading ammo might, like, for precision, might not save you money, but it'll win you a match. And the money, the time, the investment, what is your time worth? Like, if you can reload, like, why wouldn't you want to, every chance, any opportunity, anything you can do to make you a winner? Like, that's what I try and do. And so like, reloading was fun, it was a hobby, but now it's like, hey, I'm getting first round hits out at 600 plus yards, right? As long as I can read the wind. Versus using factory ammo where like you're having a 75% accuracy, so that's kind of like, so to answer your question, yeah, there's some things coming around, but like definitely working on them.
Yeah. Well, you already mentioned reloading, which is what we wanted to talk about for the remainder of this podcast. And you already mentioned that it's not really a great way to save money right now. You are investing a lot of time and other resources. But would you say at this point in your shooting career, it's really a part of your battle rhythm, the whole testing and then evaluating and then refining whatever you're about to take to the match, knowing that it's going to be 100% like accurate and reliable for you?
Oh, definitely. So I'm still saving money. I loaded up a bunch of 77 grain Sierras at Nationals, and I can still reload them for cheaper than you were to go out and buy either, Burger factory ammo or gold medal match. Because I looked at the price and I was like, how, what is this? What, is the juice really worth the squeeze? And, so I bought a couple boxes and then I found a load that really worked. And I looked at the cost breakdown and I'm still saving over 50 cents a round. But I mean, I'm also going from like, because even with gold medal match, out of a gas gun, shooting a minute to just over a minute, like it's not unheard of. Like you're, and if you shoot a lot, you'll know the term aggregate, right? If you shoot 3-round groups, yeah, you'll have like 1/4-inch groups. You can do that, but like go shoot 20 5-round groups. What is your average? And then do that all on one target and tell me that you're going to get a 1/4-inch group. You're not going to do it. However, your aggregate on 20 rounds, it could be an inch. It could be like just low over an inch, inch and an eighth. So like my hand loads are holding that. I can hold an inch, inch and an eighth on like a 20-round group with single digit SDs, standard deviations, right? So 100% like reloading is how I go about, like, my pistol, I don't even think about it anymore. I have it set up and I just chunk out, the only thing I change is I have some full metal jacket versus my match projectiles. And that's the only thing that I change. Just because the full metal jackets are so much cheaper and I can get them a lot. And I bought them really, really cheap and I have a bunch of them. So, but like for my rifle, I have like my hoser ammo, I have like 55 grain stuff that if it shoots, an inch and a half, I'm good with that. Like, I don't care, cause I'm probably only going to shoot that most of the time at 100 yards and then, or whatever. Depends on what I'm shooting, but you have your cone of accuracy, right? And so like, you have to look at what are you trying to achieve with what you got. And so like, if I have a really tiny target, it might be 75 yards, but if my target's like super small, then I'm gonna use my match ammo. Same thing if I'm shooting an IPSC size target at 200 yards, I can shoot that with 55 grain and I know I'm gonna hit it. Like, I'm not worried about that. So, but I definitely have, like, I plan on reloading everything. So like, I keep my brass, I sort it, right now, the hardest thing right now is finding the powder and the projectile combination that works really well. And it's so difficult to find right now. Like, I have a killer load with, certain powders, and trying to find them right now is so difficult, so difficult. And it's not, back in 2013, right? There was another panic buying thing after like the Sandy Hook deal. That shortage was created by hoarding, and you guys, like, this is not from hoarding. This is from just shortage. Like, it just doesn't exist. Like, the powder's not there. Like, the primers aren't there.
To Ukraine.
Yeah. Like it's just getting, like, I have a 50 BMG project I'm working on. And I don't know if you know this, but there haven't been 50 BMG primers in like over 6 months.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Damn.
They're gone. Not just in, like CCI 35s, Fort Smith, anybody that's making BMG primers, that's all going, like you said, it's all going to conflict. Like there's none. So so if anybody has any source on 50 BMG primers, I need 100 of them. Just 100.
Yeah, be sure to
I
tell
think I have that
Nate.
in rounds.
Yeah.
I haven't. Well, I mean, I've had. I think I have probably close to 150 BMG rounds between regular ball and AP.
Bro, how do you pull a 50 BMG round?
Oh, I don't know how you pull it.
Because I thought about that. I seriously thought like you can buy the ammo. I thought I'll just pull the round, and I went, how the crap am I going to pull a 50 BMG round? Like there's no kinetic puller. There's no like the Hornady or RCBS call it pullers. They're not doing it, so like I've thought about it. I'm just like, how do you do it?
Find a machine.
There's a way to do it. It's just like not like
find a machinist to build you the tool.
Yeah. So if you're out there listening, machinist of my dreams, help me out. I pay well in bourbon and bourbon.
We won't go to the other areas.
Yeah.
Oh man. Scarcity aside, I guess how do you go about selecting the components? And you say, you've dialed in a killer load. Like how many steps are you going through? Looking inside a loading manual, trying different types of powder, different projectiles, different brass treatments. How much of that R&D is happening before you actually figure it out?
Oof, man, that's a good question. So my reloading process has gotten very sophisticated over the years, right? So, and I'm kind of going through that right now. I'm filming my competition reloading videos right now, and it just takes time because of I want it to be portrayed properly. So I anneal now. I sort my head stamps, which I've heard both ways. Like I've heard people talk about how the AMU doesn't even sort their head stamps, which is wild to me. Like I think I was talking to Matt about that, and I was like, they don't even sort head stamps. I'm like, that is bonkers. Like my OCD will not allow me to not sort, like for match ammo, like for 55 grain stuff. Like, yeah, I'll just send it. But like my match ammo, I'm like, because if I have a flyer, if I have something, if I miss, I'm like, it was because I didn't sort my head stamps, and I'll never not think of that. So then, so I'll start with annealing my brass. I'll clean my brass. I now wet tumble. I used to dry media. And then when I wet tumbled, I started with the stainless steel media, and I quickly got away from that because I was finding that the stainless steel media would get stuck in the brass, right? And I was like, I'm not shooting this down my barrel. I don't want to risk that. So then I found a solution that cleans the brass. I found brass juice, I think is what it's called. I found that, and it cleans it really, really well. And the biggest thing is I found that if you ever wet tumble brass, like if you do I think everyone does this at one point. They learn like the lemon shine and soap mixture, right?
I hate that. I
Bruh.
don't do it. I had more stuff.
But you've tried it though, right?
Yeah, and it's
just see, there you go.
Up all my brass. Like I read it, and I was just like,
and it if you're not careful with that ratio, you tarnish your brass.
Yep.
And then does that tarnishing the brass change the metallurgy? I don't know. So like I started wondering, like, did I just mess up all this brass? Because like I'm using the Frankfurt Arsenal one, and you can get like 800 pieces of brass in there, and I'm like, did I just ruin 800 pieces of brass? I spoiler alert, I still shot him, but like but what I used to do, and I'll be honest, I'm gonna tell you exactly what I did. Did you guys ever see the videos from like the 6'5" guys?
Mm-mm.
Have you ever heard of them?
No.
They don't make videos anymore, but this was in the early days of YouTube. They were doing precision rifle reloading, and there was like and they were up in Washington State where I grew up, and so I was also another thing I kind of liked watching. But they were called the 6'5" guys, and they were reloading 6.5 by 47, and they were doing PRS stuff. And I was like, man, this is what I want to do. I want to get into reloading, and watching them talk about products and reloading their process, learning about float in the dies and how to set up the dies, and really taught me a lot. And so their videos are still up, I'm pretty sure. And there's a lot of good information in there. Now, some of it's outdated somewhat, but like the core principles are still there, and they're still good. Learning how to set up dies and learning about float and concentricity. And then I moved into, they had Scott Satterley come on. And then if you've been reloading long enough, like you've heard of the Satterley loading method.
Mm-hmm.
And the Satterley loading method is basically saying, you're going to load these charges, and you're going to try and find, the best group. And then you're going to do a seating die test. So like you were shooting, maybe 50 rounds or more to try and find, like, dial in that load from, finding your powder charge and then finding your seating depth. Like if you listen to Eric Cortina, which, I watch a lot of reloading stuff. So like, and a lot of the stuff that I do, I don't take credit for, and I'm pretty upfront about it. I use kind of like an amalgamation of a bunch of different stuff. I started watching Eric Cortina, and he was talking about, it's all about, you have to worry about your internal, your external, so it's like your combustion, and then it's like your seating depth. And he talks about the different things, how you would tune it, and then I started paying attention to, there's a guy by the name of Blayr on Instagram called Reloading All Day. Now, this is over the course of a few years. And talking to Blayr, he got with a ballistician, and he learned about a way to set up, find a load, find a powder, find a projectile, and he could get you in single-digit SDs without firing a shot. And he has a program, and he sells this. And so I'm not going to give it away because it's what he does. And but it works. And what he does is that he teaches you how to use Gordon's reloading tool, if you're familiar with that. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
No.
No? Okay. So Gordon's reloading tool is, it only works on Windows. There's no application for Apple. And it was started, it's an open source thing. The creator of it passed away, I think last year, but it's open source. And so data is constantly being collected because people will upload data. And it's when they're loading data and they're truing the powder and the projectile combinations, then it adds data to the information, so that the source gets bigger and more complete, right? It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. Now, I will say this, trying to understand it takes a degree. So talking to Blayr, he has a course, and if you want to get into precision reloading and you want to do it the easiest, simplest way, and you don't mind paying for it, it's not crazy expensive, but like he teaches you a way by using Gordon's reloading tool, and you can come up with a load, and you'll probably only fire, like I came up with my load to shoot at Nationals in 15 rounds. That was it. I found the load, then I proofed it, and while proofing it, I was like, this is it. And so It'll get you to single digit SDs. And, I was shooting a third out of a gas gun with a 8-power scope at 100 yards. I was shooting consistent, third to 3/4 inch groups. That was my aggregate. And it was consistent. So to answer your question, how do I go about now finding a powder projectile? Like, I use Gordon's reloading tool, and it has been most beneficial to me now because I don't have to use components, or I can take what I can find and I can make something work. And I think that's more beneficial than if you had, access to anything and everything you wanted. So now it's like, if I can't find shooter's rolled match rifle or 8208 or Varget, I can go to my shop, or I can, try and resource powder. Like, hey man, what do you have there? Oh, I got this. I'm like, cool. Buy that. I'll pay you back. And then I start working in Gordon's reloading tool. And at this point right now, just being realistic, that's what I got to do. That's what I do. And, I have a load with 2520, TAC, match rifle, shooter's roll match rifle, IMR 8208. I have to find as many loads as I can, because man, like, it's tough right now. So I hope that answers your question. Kind of how, and it took a long time to get to where I'm at right now. Like, I've been reloading for like 14 years now. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, Matt and I have been reloading for a fair amount, and neither of us had heard about Gordon's reloading tool, and that's really cool that you have all that information for different powders, because that, I mostly reload for pistol, and there's certain powders I stick with. If I deviate, I get uncomfortable. I want to go back into the soft embrace of tight group, and that's just where I prefer to stay. So that's really neat. I followed some of the Instagram accounts that you were mentioning while you were talking. So yeah, definitely, that sounds like a whole nother rabbit hole that we could definitely get into. Speaking of rabbit holes, we talked a little bit. That's a little more on the, I guess the mental and the software side, but
Yep.
we talked a little bit about your reloading setups, after we recorded last time. So
Mhm.
I'm assuming you have different stuff for your I guess the mass pistol quantities that you do, and then your precision rifle reloading setup. So what gear setup do you run, and why did you go with that equipment?
Okay. So the short end of that story is I run the Dillon RL 1100. The reason why I use the Dillon RL 1100 is because of military 223 or crimped 223. And that is the only reason. Because I moved from a single stage press. And if you've ever loaded pistol on a single stage press, you want to punch yourself in the face every time you have to pull the handle.
Well, you have time. You have time to punch yourself in the face when you're loading on a
Yes, you
single
do.
stage.
And you wish you didn't have time.
Or 80
It is-
rounds in an hour is the fastest I ever got.
Oh, like I remember when I was learning it, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And then when I wanted to load 100 rounds up, I'd get home from work, my part-time job, and I would like, oh man, I was living in an apartment. And so I had to faction me I was living like in a 600 square foot apartment. And so I had to build me a little reloading hutch. And by the time I'd get done with 100 rounds on pistol, it was like 2.5 hours later. I was like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. So I went to my local reloading shop and I said, hey, I want to shoot more, but like, this ain't cutting it. And he goes, cool, Dillon. And I was like, tell me about this Dillon. And so I got at that time it was a 550, a 650, and a 1050.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, what's the difference of all that? He goes, well, how much are you shooting? And I told him how much. I wasn't shooting competitively yet. And he's like, well, you don't need the 1050. Like, forget that. And he's like, I was like, well, tell me about the 650. And he's like, he knew I was a fireman, so like I didn't have a ton of money. And he's like, yeah, you could go that route. He's like, but you don't need it. He's like, why don't you look at this 550? And the big difference between, and if you guys aren't like your listeners, if they're not savvy to Dillon's, the biggest difference between a 550 and everything else is that you manually rotate the stations.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it's a 4-station press versus the, I don't know,
There's 5 on
750
this. 750 has 5.
I think you're right. And then the 1100 is, it's 7 or 8 depending on how you look at it. Yeah. Like, so if you consider the brass going in, like, then it's like 8. But so I was on the 550 for years. And I was good with it. You know, I was loading 9mm 45, 223. And then I started converting, you know, I bought the Dillon trimmer and I was converting 223 brass to 300 blackout, and I was loading 300 blackout. And, you know, I started getting silencers, and I was like, man, this is like, it's a culmination. Like, this is why we reload. Cause you know, 300 blackout so people might not remember this, but when 300 I saw 300 blackout at SHOT Show, and I was like, this is the coolest thing since sliced bread. And this is going to be amazing. And everyone was like, nah, it's going to be crap. Like, that's an old JDJ round. Like, that they tried it, it's not going to work. And I'm like, no, you fuds, like, get back from me. Like, I'm going to tell you this, listen to my tale. Like, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. And then 2013 happened, and, you know, the shortage from the Sandy Hook thing happened, and like it struggled, but then it kind of came back, and like, you know, Silencer Co. started making ammo for it, which I still have some, which is really cool because like that stuff's like, I'm going to call it collector. So if people want to buy it, like, name your price. But it was kind of cool. Like, they had like the Hornady load, the old 208 AMAX, and they had the 220 Sierra Match King. So anyways, like that's how I started loading. And then when I started competing in the tactical games in 2019, my reloading, you know, I was ramping up in volume and trying to, swaging 223 brass is a pain in itself. So I bought a Dillon Super Swage 600 or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have to go through and swage all that, like, that was an entire day in itself. Like, I'd come home for work, or I would bring it to the fire station, and I would, you know, swage brass, and it just took forever because it's only one piece at a time. And then I found this company called Swage It. And it's where you would replace the priming system, and it would make it a swaging thing. And I tried that, and it worked okay. Like, it wasn't 100%, and it was okay. So when Blayr started shooting tactical games with me, so literally my consumption of ammo doubled overnight. So training ammo, competition ammo. And that's when I said, man, I gotta do something. Because I was staying up till 1 or 2 in the morning reloading for the match that we had to leave for 5 in the morning for. And I was like, this can't work anymore. Like, I gotta have a break. So it's also when COVID was happening, and so like you couldn't find anything. And so I went to that same reloading shop, and I was like, hey man, I need 1100. He goes, yeah, join the rest of us. I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like, when one comes in, call me. It just so happened that he, like, the next week, no joke, I'm not even, like, couldn't have happened at a better time. He goes, hey, I just got one in. I was like, is it in 223? He goes, nope, it's in 9mm. I don't care. Like, I'll buy it. I bought it. You know, I already had 223 dies. I already had 9mm dies. So I just like bought another tool head. Because like, you know, the allure to Dillon's is that you can swap tool heads, right? Leave all your dies set up, swap a tool head. And in fact, Pat's the one that helped me out a lot with the 1100 because he has a 1050. And he kind of helped me out, like walked me through like changing things out. And because a 550 is easy. Like, you can change out a 550 in like, I think, like 5 minutes.
Yeah, the 1100 is very involved.
Yes. So like, I have it down to a science, and it still takes probably about 10 to 15 minutes. And you have to be like on your game to do it in 15 minutes. Otherwise it takes about 30. I remember the first time I did it, it probably took me like 40 minutes because I was going super slow.
Yeah.
But being able to run brass through, because I mean, there are some 9mm crimp brass too, but like being able to run your brass through processing and depriming, swaging, trimming, and everything's done, man, like that took an entire day off my prep, an entire day. And so like I was able to, and this is how I describe reloading people. It's buying your time back. What do you want to do? What's your end goal? Because if your end goal is to like save money, then you better have a ton of time. If you're trying to make quality ammo and have a life, you're going to spend some money. There's really no way to do it otherwise. I mean, you know, I don't want to speak in absolutes, but like that's pretty much it. If you reload for any amount of time, like that's it. You're trying to buy your time back. And you know, I have an annealing made perfect amp, right? And then I realized that I'm sitting here one at a time running this brass and this annealer. So what's the answer? They make an amp mate. You buy an amp mate and it runs it for you. Like you just, like the old infomercial, you set it and forget it, right? You know, so anneals all your brass. Then you take it, size it, clean it, you know, go about your business and go do something else, you know. The only thing I haven't done yet I haven't gotten into automation. That's the next step.
I was going to ask. So, I mean, there's so many of these processes that just suck ass to do manually, right? I mean, so I did the whole thing with the swage it or not the swage it, the super swage.
Yeah.
There's a little label on mine that says Patrick Swagey on it. I think it makes me laugh every time I see it. But slowly and slowly, like you find more efficient ways to do things. Like for example, I bought a decapper. It's currently at Matt's house, and you know, that's how we decap all our brass, and then we wash it, and then Matt also has a roll sizer that he borrows from a friend. You know, so there's all these different ways. I guess if you were to dip your toe into automation, where do you see your first entry?
So the Mark 7 guy has been coming around to tactical games. I've been talking to him.
Yeah.
I'm definitely interested in him.
Yeah, Rick.
I believe so. I'm bad with names. I'm not going to lie. If he's listening to this, I apologize. I'm bad with names. He gave me his card, and I have his card somewhere.
He's the guy I talked to in Florence like a year ago, and I went up to him. I was like, "Dude, like nobody here knows what the hell you're selling. Like most of these, there's a fair amount of like, there's maybe like 2 or 3 of us that reload, but he really just wanted to check it out. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I went up to him and he seemed super uninterested in talking to me because I was like, oh man, I've been talking to the one of the guys on Instagram. He goes, that was me. And I was like, I'm the guy that was talking, and I labeled this. He goes, oh, that's you. And I was like, yeah. So he remembered me. And so he was at Nationals and he's like, hey, he's like, I thought you were going to buy some stuff. And I was like, I was. And then my spending money got taken up by adult things like real life. And he's like, no, I get it. So I've been looking at Mark 7. I think they make a good system.
They do.
I saw that Dylan put out their own, which is AmmoBot, because they bought AmmoBot.
Right.
If I'm being 100% honest, like I don't like that system. Like I just don't think that system is refined. I'm sure it works, but it just doesn't look great. So there's another system that I'm interested in, and I can't ask me offline about it, but like there's a guy that's he's an engineer, and
both.
Yeah, we know who this is.
He's a good.
So I think you'll know what there's stuff going on that hasn't been brought to the light of day yet, that where I'm like, anyways, like
I'll just put it this way. If you're interested in someone who like does automation on the side and has worked with a lot of reloading stuff, I believe it's B Team Engineering that you guys are talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. Good dude. Really passionate about what he does.
Yes.
He has not translated any of his products commercially because it's really a hobby for him. It's a personal passion and he doesn't want it to become work. But a lot of the
Yes.
stuff he's making is really, really freaking cool. If you're a reloading nerd like we are, then you're into it.
Exactly.
And he'll
That's
sell
kind of
you-
how that's kind of how you can like do the smell test with guys who are like kind of like us. So you're like, hold on, my dog's barking. Sorry.
Nah,
Hold
it's
on.
all
Let me
good.
let her out real quick.
No worries, man. It'll be easy to edit that out.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're a reloading nerd, it's only a matter of time before you'll find him, right?
Mhm.
So that's very true.
Well, I remember whenever he first started on Instagram and there was only maybe 100 followers, and now he's kind of blown up.
Oh yeah. And like
And I
yeah.
was listening to him on Manny Talk Shooting, and I want to say he sells, like, he'll sell you the plans and he'll sell you everything. Like, he'll sell you all the components. I believe, I don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but he will sell you the stuff and give you updates and all that stuff.
Yeah. No, and I always wondered because I'd always see this stuff and I was like, but I don't ever see it for sale.
Mhm.
He's like, this is for a customer. This is for a customer. I'm like, how do you become a customer? And then, so it's, you just got to reach out to him. And, but he does stuff outside of reloading too. Like he's an engineer and he works on, he just does
government
some really
project.
cool stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just does really cool stuff. Like, like you hit it on the nail, the nail on the hammer on the nail, or like you said it perfectly, Frank, when you said like when you nerd out, like everything, like he just does some cool stuff, really cool stuff.
Yeah. I
like
got
auto priming feeding system like that. To me was really cool how he created that slide that just, no longer in a tube where, like, if you, let's say you come down and it's not perfectly aligned and then you have a primer explode and your whole tube can explode. And that actually happened to a friend of mine, and he happened to not be wearing iPro, and he got very lucky because his whole primer tube blew up and exploded in his face. Like his system, it's just a feed ramp where it just feeds the primers into that pocket to where you can now load it into the primer pocket.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and I've been watching him, the different iterations that he's had of that, and there was like I don't know how many versions of it before he got to his final. I don't even know if that is the final product, but I got, you see it, you're like, wow, that's just really cool. And he shows you the failures too. He's like, this isn't working, but this is where I'm at, and you're like, that's just really cool. So I dig that stuff.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning even the like fully developed commercial stuff still has issues. Some of it is subject to user error, but things mess up. And I guess, you talked about getting, jumping from press to press. You went from a single stage to a 550, then to 1100. When you get a new piece of equipment that's as involved as a reloading press, how much of a, I guess, tutorial period do you really go through before you really start testing that thing? I mean, it took me a second to learn the 1100 coming up from the 750, especially since I had a Mark 7 auto drive on it.
Yeah. I don't get intimidated by equipment very often, but I was intimidated by the 1100.
It's a lot.
Yeah. And so trying to make sure everything was right, because I also went from a reloader where I decided when it moved forward to now it's moving forward every time you pull the handle. And that was the biggest learning curve for me. Making sure that I was ready for it to move on to the next station. So like, when I'm setting up the dies, sometimes there was a few times where like brass was getting away from me and I didn't have primers, and there was powder, which I don't know why I had powder in there, and powder is going to go everywhere. And, I definitely learned. And that's also when I learned that the 1100 does not like being dirty. So you do have to go through and, you have to find your own amount of cycles you go through. But for me, it's typically between 2,000 and 5,000 cycles, and you have to go through and just completely clean it, grease it. And, Dylan, to their credit, they make a helpful series, and they say, hey, if you're having issues with this, check this, and like, take this out, oil this, don't oil that, and they'll talk about, and that really helped me. Because as soon as I did that, I went through, You know, my primers weren't sticking, my primer bar was, everything was going okay. And, you know, things were just all of a sudden like, you know, magic. It started working again because I cleaned it, you know.
Mhm.
But you know, usually there isn't much tutorial. Like I'll go through, I'll like move it a couple times and I'll be like, okay, this is how it works. But for the 1100, there definitely was a learning curve there. Because there's a lot going on with that, especially swapping tool heads. You know, the first time I changed the tool head, and it's hard to describe this unless you've been around 1100, but when there's a big spring that's in the back, and when you loosen the bolt that holds the tool
Yeah,
head down,
it just pushes it. Yeah.
yep, it shot up, and it on the primer bar that's right above it, it pushed my primer. Like there's a part on the primer bar that got altered, and I
Mhm.
had to go back and fix it. You know, so there was a learning curve going to the 1100. So it probably took me a solid month of using it before I could just hop on it, go through the motions, and just like start chucking out ammo, right? You know, so um, what I'm trying to do now is build a dedicated case processing tool head
Mhm.
with a short trim tool head,
Yeah.
because I want to start making 300 blackout brass on there. Start doing that again, and that's really the only way to do it. So
Okay. Yeah. Very cool. I guess last question I have from you is, so you've mentioned being very detail oriented, and you self-admitted OCD in the way that you prepare your reloading. How do you go about quality controlling your match ammo? Like what's that process like?
so I put my hand on every piece of brass that I'm going to shoot. And I do that because there was one of those times where I was reloading on my 550 and I was up till 2 in the morning, and I forgot to case gauge my ammo.
Hmm.
And we were at the Meridian event at Tactical Games 2021, I think it was. And it was the very first stage. um, I went and shot pistol at this stage, and I was like, man, I'm doing really good. And then you flowed into like the rifle part, and I was having stoppages. Like I had to like take my magazine out, go to my next mag, and it was a mess. And so um, all my rifle ammo was bad,
Hmm.
and it was by like 1,000 or 2,000s. It just would not. It just kept the bolt from seating just perfectly, and it just would not fire. So because of that, I put my hand on every piece of brass. Everything gets case gauged, and I make sure for precision match ammo, it's all the same head stamp. I now I have a Henderson trimmer, if you're familiar with those. So before I was having to trim the brass, so size it, trim it, and then put it on uh, a case prep center, you know, where you chamfer and deburr. And that's just for guys that aren't into reloading. It basically just the inside and outside of the case mouth. You take the edge off and you make it to where it'll see the bullet better.
Hmm.
But with a Henderson trimmer, it trims it and chamfers and deburrs it in one fluid motion. So again, buying your time back, right? But you're also putting your hand on every piece of brass. So you're making sure that you don't have any. So now that I anneal, I don't have as many failures in cases as I used to. I used to find that I would have, you know, some cases were cracking and I'd have those issues. And for people who don't understand why that's a bad thing, is that if you have a case crack or it's close to cracking and you can't tell, that's when you start getting case head separations and you start having, you know, failures. And like there was a friend of mine, Steve Chow, he had, felt so bad for him. Like at Nationals, he had, you know, case head separations. And so we got the case out, and then he had it again. And then he had to swap. Luckily he had another upper, and he swapped the upper completely. You know, so like that's why I also want to put every piece of brass in the hands, because I want to see to make sure everything is good. I don't have bent rims. I don't have anyway. So like that's the first step of making sure everything is good. And then after I get it annealed and everything is trimmed and everything's up, I run it through the I clean it to get all the lube off. And again, what I do after that is I put it in a dryer, and then I take that off, and I still have to put my hands on that brass because I'm going back through. And as I'm loading, I use a mandrel to set my neck tension because I don't crimp my heavy match ammo. I will crimp if I have a cantilever, but I don't typically crimp my heavy match ammo. I did a test back a while back, and I didn't find that it really helped. It kind of made it a little irregular if you didn't have perfect crimping every time. And so what I did find is that by use of short action custom dies, you can get a decapping mandrel setup where it'll decap it, size it, and it'll mandrel it all in one swoop instead of having to size, decap, and then mandrel another step. Again, just more steps, right? And I set my neck tension that way. So that's kind of how I go through and I make sure everything's good. I go back through and about every 10 rounds, I'll make sure I don't check to the me plat on match bullets because obviously, especially on Sierras, they're all irregular. They can be as much as 5 thousandths off, right? So I use a trying to remember the name of it. It's it measures off the ogive of the bullet because that's the more accurate measurement. Your overall length, right? So a case to ogive, right? So I measure that about every 10 rounds just to make sure that everything's okay, everything's going okay. And literally I'll check about every 10 rounds, right? I hand throw every charge. So I use a Matchmaster from RCBS, and I'll validate the powder charges, every like 10 to 20 charge, I'll validate it on a secondary scale to make sure it's good. And that's what I do with my match heavy, like my long range match ammo. Like for my 55 grain stuff, I just load it, and because it'll shoot a minute to a minute and a half. And it is what it is. Like it's a full metal jacket, boat tail. Like I can get it to shoot sub minute. And mine does. Mine will shoot just under a minute, which is pretty good. But if it shot over an inch, I'm not going to have heartburn about it. I'm not as careful with that. Like I don't sort brass. I don't, I do everything else. Like I anneal it. I make sure everything's, I still put my hands on it. I still make sure it case gauges, but I don't, sort brass, and I'm not as anal about it. I'm not checking every 10th round. I'm chugging that out on my 1100, 100 pieces at a time. Like every 20, 30, I'll probably check overall length. I'll check the powder. But other than that, no, like I'm much more attentive. And I do the same thing with pistol. I'll check every 20, 30. I still do that. Like I can't not check, but other than that, like I'm really, really meticulous about our heavier, 69 grain, 77 grain, or, whatever bullet we're using at the time. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you going into detail and all that. I'm the same way. I mean, when my auto drive's running, I will check the primer seating depth, the crimp, and the overall length on my pistol ammo, mostly because the Infinity open gun is really, really, really picky, especially with the crimp. So yeah, no,
Do
it's all.
you run sensors on yours? Like does it where it checks?
Yeah, not so it checks for bullet positioning, right? So if a bullet isn't there, then it just shuts off the machine. I found that to be very useful. And then That's really the only sensor I've run because so the Mark 7 comes with a suite of sensors, and you can there's one that checks from whether or not the primer is fully like left the pocket. There's
Yeah.
one that checks the switch, like whether it's been properly swaged, and then there's also a powder check. However, the problem is I'm running a bullet dropper, so I don't really have the space on the 1100 to dedicate a
Yeah.
full station to the powder check, and that's an argument towards, I mean, yeah, like this whole thing has been a rabbit hole, but you know, we talked about stations a little bit with the 550 and the 1100, the Mark 7, like Apex, I think it is, or even the
Yeah.
Revolution,
Apex 10. Yeah.
it's got 10 or more stations, right? So
Yeah,
you can, it's just like every time you pull the handle, every time there's a revolution, like 10 different things are happening. So the amount
Yes.
of it's like what Nate was talking about. You're buying your time back. You are being more efficient with every single stroke, and you're doing more things, whether it's checking powder or whether it's swaging or filling a primer or whatever, what have you.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, really, the bolt sensor, there's also a it's it'll know if it hits an obstruction. It's a torque sensor, so if it encounters like too much resistance, it'll just stop. And I know I have
Okay.
to go look, and like it's usually the brass coming out of that little shuttle at the beginning at station 1.
How are you loading your primers?
So I have the Dylan primer filler.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like every 100, pause the machine real quick, load it back up. I don't like to load it while the machine's moving, right?
No, yeah, agreed. Yeah.
And then
No.
I just keep going. And then like so I'll load it. I'll put the that tube back in the RF 100 primer filler, and then I'll just dump another box of primers, and I'll have that going as I'm loading ammo. So it's really a very short pause. But yeah, what were you about to say next?
I've always wondered on automatic primer fillers, what's the failure rate for getting it in the right direction?
So there's so Matt has the same one, but and I'll let you chime in, Matt, but it's different for different primers. So the RF 100 has like you can tune the vibration, and the way I have it right now for Fiocchi's is it's all the way down. If you move it, if you set the vibration higher, the primers will move faster, but there's more of a likelihood that you're going to get an upside down primer, which is what you were probably concerned about.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, I literally like when I'm tuning it, I will watch and make sure all the primers are going in the right way. And I tend to be a little more conservative rather than, trying to hunt efficiency that really isn't really worth it.
So
Yeah.
I've learned, like what Frank just said, running at a lower speed, you're going to be a lot more efficient with having all your primers facing the correct way. When I have been in a rush and like, you know, staying up late and starting to rush, I will have about 3 to 4 primers that are the wrong way. And when you compound that to run, um, doing a couple thousand rounds in one go,
Adds up.
it adds up. And like to me, it's all about efficiency, but it's all about getting everything correct. And you know, you're not doing this for cost savings. You're doing this to have the most amount of accuracy possible.
Yeah.
And
Consistency and yeah.
and you're talking about money. Like one thing I don't like doing is ruining a casing, ruining a primer,
Yeah, that
ruining a
sucks.
bullet, ruining a
Yeah.
projectile that I'm trying to build. I want to have as much cost savings because already I'm not saving any money. I'm saving efficiency on time. And if I'm ruining stuff, well, then I'm just compounding how much more money I'm spending.
Yeah. Because I've been looking at that RF, was it RF 100 or,
Yeah.
and then I was looking at the double alpha
Yeah.
one.
The Double Alpha
Yeah.
is coming out with another one that looks a lot like the RF.
Okay. Because they had one,
Alpha.
that was like a vibratory tumbler, and you had to like
Yeah.
move it with your hand, and like
Yeah.
one side was large rifle, one was small rifle, and then they had like this bowl one.
I know
And
what
this
you're talking
bowl
about.
one was small rifle only, which I mean, that's really all I'm dealing with. I'm not dealing with, I don't shoot large rifle in any kind of volume, but that's one though I was super interested in. And
I will say
but I
this.
mean, like,
When it
yeah,
comes like I mean, I like everything matching, so I love, I want everything to be Dylan at this point. But putting all that aside, I will say having that is a game changer. Like
Yeah.
it's really expedited a process and just taken one other step that I can just walk away from or just watch and not have to expend too much energy on. Another aspect of the reloading process, the case feeder. Double Alpha has a case feeder plate,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. That thing's nice.
like you want to talk about efficiency, like the efficiency of that case feeder plate for 9 mil. I was able to put more brass into my case feeder, and I was able to, get everything in that tube a lot faster. Like you're getting a third more in faster than what you would with just the regular Dylan case
And
feeder.
yeah, and I just recently got their improved powder funnel for
Mhm.
223. So when I use extruded powders, they don't it hinders bridging,
Mhm.
right? And I found that to be a huge advantage to running, because before I was always having to wait, a second or two for all the powder to drop. Because if you're shooting a ball powder like H335 or um, you know, 2520 or anything like that, then you don't really have to worry about, or tax being a real popular one, like that being a ball powder, like it just flows really well. But when you start shooting, 8208 or 4895, like I found that powder started to bridge a lot inside the factory Dylan powder funnel,
Mhm.
powder drop. But those aftermarket ones I found really helped
So yes, the double alpha
bridging.
one is I bought a double alpha one for 9 mil and game changer. And
Yeah.
then another piece that I found like which really assisted because like we all shoot 2011s. Um, all three of us shoot custom built 2011s. And so with those custom built 2011s, we're dealing with with a chamber that is a lot tighter than a typical off the shelf 2011. So
Hmm.
EGW has their or no EGW and Lee both have their undersized dies, and
Mm.
I found that Lee I use a Lee undersized die, and that is money whenever it comes to what's it called whenever you're when you're checking
Case gauging.
case gauging.
Yeah.
I found
Yeah.
that it's money whenever you're case gauging. Like I'm every single one of them is case gauging versus like I hate to say it, whenever I was using a Dylan, sizing die, I was getting maybe 10 rounds that would not case gauge.
And I did the same thing. And I even traced it back to certain head stamps. And I found that with a Dylan factory sizing die, it did not like MagTech brass for me.
Mm,
So, and if you use factory, like it's not just Dylan's, but like a standard, I don't know what you want to call it, but just a standard 9 millimeter die, you get that bottleneck look,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
mhm.
So talking to Pat, right? Talking to Pat, we started talking about Mighty Armory dies.
Yes. And
And
I've been looking at those.
I'm telling you right now, for 9 mil, um, I use their trim die for 223 and for 300 blackout. Phenomenal. Because I was using a standard Dylan trim die, and I really like theirs over it. I have like a 223 sizing die from them, and it works really good. It works as like a small base sizing die, and it's really good. Like, not taken away from that, but their 9 millimeter die, you don't have that bottleneck anymore. And what I found is that it really solved the issue of no matter what the head stamp of the brass, because what was happening is that the projectile was bulging out the
Mhm.
side. If you've ever seen that, and I'm sure you
Yep.
have, because
Yep.
if you've reloaded 9 mil, then you know what that looks like.
Mhm.
The Glock
And
bulge.
yeah, and the Mighty Armory die fixed it. Like I don't, you'd have to and he calls it a true semi-spec die, which he let him explain that. I'm not that guy. I'm not an engineer, but all I can tell you is that that's the only 9mm die I use now.
Another aspect too that Frank and I have incorporated is using a roll sizer. That, kind of like, we're not going to get into the engineering of it all, but that brings it back down to Sammy specifications. And
see, I'm super interested in those.
Oh yeah, they are absolute money. It's a game changer to get, getting. I still make sure that I have every die set up, including the sizing die, but I will run everything through a roll sizer, just because every single piece of brass case gauges.
And that becomes so much more important because the whole reason we went that direction, got the automated decapper because decapping my spent brass, even after I washed it on my auto drive, like that machine did not, the auto drive specifically did not like, the gunk in the primer pockets. And then ran into the sizing issue. So we're at the point where, my 38 Super Comp is getting fully processed before it goes in the press, and the press I loaded for me and a guy on the team last year, and we were about 40,000 rounds between the two of us for the year.
Yeah,
And,
I mean,
I will say, just speaking on a roll sizer, they have three different options. They have, your basic option where you can manually roll out and roll size every piece of brass, and they have a component to where you can connect it to a drill and just, let it do it automatically. It's a painstaking process still, but you're still getting efficiency. Then you go up the next size, which is, I want to say, an AC or DC conversion. Or is it AC? I can't remember.
Because it's out of like Australia, isn't it?
It is.
Like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're out of Australia. And so the next one you could roughly do, you can roll size about 1,200 pieces of brass in an hour. And then
yes, please.
and I mean, that system cost about what, 1,000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about, and I don't know if you've made any modifications to this, Matt, but the decapper and the roll sizer, we just run them in tandem with our 750 case feeders. Like literally, you unscrew the case feeder a little bit, you pivot it, at least I did, pivot it off to the side, and then you run a separate tube for your brass, and it feeds right into the decapper, swap out the decapper, put in the roll sizer. And really, like that part's, I know you said you had to, find something to put on your annealing machine, but you already have a Dillon machine. Yeah.
That's what I do. So that's what's great about the AmpMate is it uses my Dillon case feeder.
Perfect.
So I just had to create a different stand.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it is. Like I use a Dillon, my Dillon case feeder for it. And yes, why try and reinvent the wheel?
The last roll size that they have, it processes about 2,000 rounds or 2,000 cases per minute. It is more for high quantities, obviously, commercial use. And it's going to cost you. But and that's the one I was using. My buddy, he bought one of the commercial use ones, and I found that at the time that the regular Dillon case feeder plate could not keep up. So then I switched over to the double alpha plate, and it kept up with every single one, and I never had a backup. And talk about efficiency and time, I got it back.
That's cool. I'll have to. I've never looked at their case feed plates. I'm gonna have to look at that because I still get every now and again I get something that's hung up. So I'm gonna have to check that out. That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, we all have multiple items that we're probably gonna be putting in shopping carts.
But I mean, that's when you meet people kind of like us and you speak to other people that reload, you're gonna find something that you didn't know about. Like you're going to.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about reloaders is that one, I mean, I don't want to speak in definites, but like I've yet to meet a reloader that doesn't want to help you.
Or isn't going to give you secrets.
Yeah, I'm like, I guess there are some of those people out there, but I'm like, they're probably assholes in all aspects of their life, not just reloading. Because like, I will. So like in my reloading videos that I do, I purposely don't give out charge weights mainly for like safety purposes, right?
Yeah.
Not because I'm like super secret this. Like if you text me off to the side, I'll tell you when I'm loading. I don't care. But for like safety purposes, I'm going to be like, hey man, like I'm not telling you purposely what I'm doing because I want you to go and read a manual, be safe, and do what you need to do. Like,
Yes.
because I'm going to be 100% honest with you. A lot of my loads are over published maximums,
Same.
but I know how to get there in a safe manner. Not everybody knows that, and not everybody has the same equipment as I do. They might not have like a
Kneeler.
Yeah, they might not have it a kneeler. They might not know how many times that piece of brass has been fired, and they might have a poorly heat treated 9310 or whatever bolt face that they have, and it might just shear bolt lugs. Like I'm not trying to do that. You work up to your own, and that's the main reason why I don't give low data on my videos. And so, like, speaking of like keeping like super secrets, like I'll tell you, just hit me up off to the side, you know. I'll tell anybody when I'm doing it, but I'm also going to tell you, hey, this is over maximum. You need to work up to this. Don't just go straight to that. Because I don't want to see you blow your face off.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of experiences that we've all gone through. All of us have at some point mentioned, the late night reloading session. Either, other stuff just came up in life and you have a match the very next day and you just procrastinated it, or in someone's situation, misread the round count for a JJ Rakaza class and ended up loading half of what he was supposed to. We've all been in that situation. I think it's just, we had, by sometimes to our own fault, sometimes not, our time was spent poorly. It was spent inefficiently, and we want to spare other people that same headache. My entry into reloading was very rocky. I definitely fucked up a lot of things. But yeah,
same.
I don't see the point of other people going through the same ass pain.
No. And there's a good friend of mine that's down here in Louisiana, Trevor. He in fact, he was one I was supposed to be shooting the sniper match with, and we became friends out of reloading. I mean, if we're gonna boil it down, like he came and shot a tactical games match, but like we found that reloading was our connection.
Ground.
Yeah, and we're always trying to, hey, and he always joked, he's like, yeah, you're the reason why I don't have any money. I'm like, man, you're the reason why I don't have any money, So it's like we were always trying to like improve, but through that camaraderie, our reloading game got super tight, super fast. Like we were getting crazy ammo produced, and like we can make some of the best ammo that you've ever shot because we challenged each other and we pushed each other and we asked questions. And if you can find somebody like that, like you guys obviously reload together, and like when you have somebody that can help you like that, that's when I saw my reloading game skyrocket. And it's through, I don't know what you want to call it, mentorship or like just a friendship, but like, Trevor definitely helped my reloading game tremendously. Like hopefully I helped him, but like I know he helped me. So
would you say starting out on a single stage really helped you understand and the process? And would you have started, looking back, would you have started on a single stage to this day, or would you have just jumped up to a progressive?
Okay, so yes, learning on a single stage, you understand the process. I think you understand the individual processes a lot more concisely because you have to physically change out a die and go to that. No, I would not recommend myself or anyone else to start on a single stage press. Having said that, there are huge benefits to using, I still use a single stage press. So it's like they still have their purpose, they still have their place. But if you're going to load on volume, no, I would not say start with a single stage press. I would 100% tell someone, like, or I would say this: get a turret press, like a Reading T7 turret press. Who else? Lyman has an All-American 8.
Area 419 has a nice turret press out now.
Hey, if we're going that, if we're going like large, like yeah, go ahead and get the Area 419, and if you want to go ahead and baller and go with like a 1200, no, it's actually I think it's like 1400 now or something like that. But if you want to go all out, yeah, do the Area 419 the zero.
Yeah.
If you want to get a zero, like go for it, man. Like more power to you. If you're just starting out, I would say maybe look at the other options for like cost savings.
Yeah.
But I would not. If you plan, if you're just trying to reload like your hunting ammo, yeah, get a single stage because you're probably not loading more than 20 rounds at a time anyway. If you're loading, because you want to go shoot volume, don't waste your time. And I say that lovingly, right? You would do much better to just, and if you want to learn that, because you can still get the single stage knowledge off of a turret press, and that's why I say that. I think you can get that single stage press knowledge off of a 550 because you are individually having to set up those stages and know what's going on. If I were able to talk to myself when I first started, I would have got either a turret press or a 550. And that's the reason why, because my end result was going to be high volume competition shooting. And if you're going to shoot higher volume, even if you're not shooting competition, which everyone should shoot competition, shameless plug. But if you're just going to shoot for volume, and if you just want to have stuff loading, turret press, if you're loading for an AR or a handgun, period, I don't care if it's a revolver, get a turret press or get a 550. Like, it's so much better. So much better. I still use a single stage press for doing small batches of load development. So they definitely have a place. I want to get an arbor press because I think that's cool because then I can do my load data at the range. So like single stage loading still has its place, and I think it's still very applicable, but in its own way. Yeah, if I went around and finally got to the question.
Talking about that, I have a friend of mine, Olympic level shooter, and he primarily bullseye shooter. We were at Nationals in 2019, CMP Nationals, and we were just hanging out in the hotel room, and I see him pulling out his press, and he starts loading his ammo for the next day, and I'm just like, "What the fuck are you doing, dude?" "Oh, I'm just loading up my ammo for tomorrow." What? Guess what? He won a national champion. And I mean, 3-time Olympian, I think 2 or 3-time national champion. Like, dude knows what he's doing. And at the same time, he takes his pistol apart. He's like, I'm going to do a trigger job right now. I'm just like, on a 1911. I'm just like, Jesus, dude, talk about breaking every single rule prior to a major national champion, and you're making modifications right before. But the guy was confident in his abilities and knew what he was doing, and he's been doing this, since the late 90s, over 20 years. And I mean, he went out and he won.
Well, I mean, look at bench rest shooters, 25 meter, 100, they load the ammo for their next string right there on the spot. So out in the wind, out and everywhere, and they're using arbor presses. So it's like that part doesn't seem as crazy to me as working on your trigger. I would be like, oh, I wonder why my trigger doesn't work. I don't know, maybe. But anyways, he knows what he's doing. Like, I don't. I am not working on my 2011 trigger because I'm not the guy. But I'll mess on an AR trigger. But, oof.
Yeah,
man, that would make me super nervous.
Yeah. Well, if you're listening to this and you know a little bit about reloading, or even if you're thinking about getting into it, I'm sure we've given you a lot to think about. I'm sure we've given you a lot of items to go out and price out, but if you have any questions, like hit us up. I love to talk about, all of us obviously love to talk about reloading because we started talking about a bunch of other stuff, and then I think we've been talking about this for the last hour. But
Yeah.
at this point, Nate, is there anything else you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, 100%. And there's a lot more people starting to hit me up on reloading. Please reach out. Like that's the whole reason why I'm doing reloading videos now, like the how-to, is because people want to know more. So I'm always happy to help about anything, really. You know, competition, reloading, how to get your ankle cut on and get through. You know, so yeah, anytime if you have any questions, man, just hit me up. I'm happy to help.
Well, we appreciate your time. Wish you the best with your continued recovery. To our listeners, let us know how we're doing, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Sounds good. Thanks.